Hello and welcome back to the podcast. I am joined today by a very special guest. Hello, Jen.
Hi.
So Jen is Jen Grange of Lakeland Wellbeing, and Jen and I met a few weeks back now on a networking call, and we connected and realised that we have so much in common in terms of our love for nature and also helping reconnect women back to their own natural nature. And I was like, got to come on the podcast. So here we are. So thanks for being here and joining me. Why don't you give us a bit of an introduction into who you are and also tell us a bit about like how you got to doing what you're doing today. So a bit of a career rundown and the various sort of choices and transitions you've made throughout your life. Love to hear that. Let's start there.
Okay, so I'm Jen and I live in the Lake District and my business Lakeland Wellbeing, funnily enough, is in the Lake District as well. So I have a wellbeing centre in Keswick, but I also do a lot of women's empowerment work. So I run retreats here in the lakes. I run wild woman and warrior woman retreats. I run firewalks. I'm a firewalking instructor and also do glass walking and other arrow breaking and other empowerment practices to support mainly women to really step into their power, to get past their limiting beliefs and step into their soul path and shine their light.
Love it.
I'm also so I also am a therapist. So I'm a Reiki master teacher. So I teach Reiki and I do various other therapeutic techniques as well at our wellbeing centre here, and I have a group of wonderful women who work with me as well. So you wanted to know my career history? Wow. Okay. Well, it's an interesting one. so you talked about that nature connection and having a very kind of, I have a land-based spiritual practice or an earth-based spiritual practice, which is about connecting with the land, the mountains, the universe. And that's very much shaped my career and it shaped the work that I do now with women. So I run full moon women circles and fire walks around the Celtic Wheel of the Year and the festivals. So my background has always been in nature, really. I grew up in Kent, in rural Kent, and some of my first memories are of my mum walking the dogs with my mum and learning the wildflower names. That's just kind of.
Mhm.
Do you remember the darling buds of May? My childhood felt a little bit like that. It was lovely. And then I moved up to the Lake District to university. So I went to which I think it was the University of Lancaster at the time, to do a degree called outdoor studies because I really wanted to be an outdoor instructor. So I did outdoor sports science, environmental science, and expedition management, therapeutic applications of the outdoors, which basically meant I went rock climbing for 3 years and got really
Brilliant.
pissed the whole time. But it was great. It was great. So I finished that as an outdoor instructor. So I worked in the outdoor industry for a couple of years. I used to manage an RYA training centre. And then my love for the nature side of things rather than the hedonistic side of the outdoors kind of really, yeah, it called me. And so I then went to do a master's degree in agriculture and environmental science. So I love the land, I love soil science, I get really excited about soil. And that led me into a career working for Natural England, the government's advisor for the environment. I worked for DEFRA for a while as well. And concurrently, I was in the army. So I was an army reservist. I was an officer in the intelligence corps for nearly 8 years as well. So all of this was going on. At the same time, or not at the same time, in my 20s, I learned Reiki. So I learned Reiki when I was I think I was about 24, maybe. And then just had that in the background. So always used that as a therapeutic technique to help myself personally and to help the people around me. And interestingly, was able to weave that through my career as well. So to work with energy techniques to support people, if somebody's having some conflict, to work with it in that way, or to bring some positive energy to a space. So always kind of had that threaded in. And then I was working for Natural England. So I worked for Natural England for 15 years. Great organisation. I've got nothing against them, but I was working in the Connecting People with Nature programme team, which I loved. And it was very much at a strategic level. And I realised I'm working in this team and I'm spending 8 hours behind a computer. It's just not work for me. So a couple of years before, I had read an article about forest bathing. And I was like, do this already. This is just like what I do. So I went and did a forest bathing qualification. So I could then begin to offer that. So I connected with Forestry England, because we have Whinlatter Forest up here, and started running forest bathing sessions. So that was kind of the beginning of my business. So I was still working for Natural England. I did a stint as a learning and development manager for DEFRA, and then came back to Natural England. And at the same time, I was running, excuse me, I was running forest bathing sessions at the weekend. I was teaching Reiki at the weekend. I was doing teaching online mindfulness courses as well, because I'm a mindfulness teacher, as well as having 2 children. Oh, as well as I was running ultra marathons in
Oh my goodness.
lockdown as well. So you know when you think, wow, how on earth did I do that?
I'm sitting here in awe right now. Yeah.
So yeah, so oh God, I can't even remember which year it was. I've been going since 2019. So
Right.
lockdown was a pause, and then in 2022. So I've been doing this full time myself for 2 years now.
Right.
I took the leap, and I was like, right, something's got to give here. I've got to choose which I love the most, and I knew it was this, and I had to dig really deep to make that transition.
Mm.
And I'm so glad I did, because I now feel like you could not squash me back in that box if you tried. I feel like, whoa, I'm so expansive now, doing what I love and following my heart, that I couldn't go back into that world of the
Yeah. I couldn't imagine it, hearing you talk about it as well. And there's so much in there that I want to sort of dive into, but where do we start? So the latest transition then, because you said you took the leap, and it is a leap, right? It's a leap of faith in yourself, and it requires, I guess, you've got a husband, so it requires a leap of faith from his side of things as well, in you and your ability to make it work, because that's the reality of it, right? What was that transition like? And I guess what were your go-to things that really supported you to know and to have that faith in yourself?
So I was really lucky that I was able to take a year's career break. So I had that kind of buffer, that I knew that even if I wasn't going to go back to my original job, I would have a job if I needed to.
Okay. Oh, that's great.
But it still took it took a lot of confidence to be able to do that. And I think because I'd been working so hard the year before, and I'd saved up quite a lot of money, because I had in my mind I would be doing this, I kind of knew that if I didn't earn any money for 6 months, I would be okay. You know, I had the buffer zone. And actually what happened was, at the time, because we were just coming out of COVID, there was actually quite a lot of wellbeing funding that was coming from COVID stream. So I'm a forest school leader as well. So I had like a whole summer's full of forest school with the kids, which was amazing. So I knew that I had that, and I was supporting somebody else running retreats. I now run my own retreats. So I knew that there was work coming in. And I knew that I just knew it. I knew it would work. I don't know if it was blind faith, but I was like, yes, I've got to do this.
It's interesting because kind of one of the first foundations, if you like, of the modern leader identity is that she knows, likes, and trusts herself. So a big part of my journey has been in that kind of arena, just like getting to know, who am I? And as we're going to talk about, looking at nature and actually reconnecting with nature helps us find ourselves almost. And then the liking yourself is another whole like process, in terms of like any just the whole thing, being a woman and actually liking the skin that you're in. And then the trust in yourself is another layer of that, right? It's actually having that faith in yourself that whatever you're going to come across, you're going to be able to handle. So I love that, and there's a beautiful connection with the modern leader way in that sense. And then I was picking up on one thing that you said. Well, first of all, do your kids share the love of nature that you have? Do they? How old are they?
They are 8 and 11, and we're really lucky to live in the Lake District. So I live in Newlands Valley, if anybody knows it, near the bottom of Cat Bells. So we're out and about a lot. I do a lot of fell running from my door. The kids aren't so keen on the running, but they like the walking, and then we're on the lake quite a lot. So yeah, the kids love the outdoors.
Oh yeah. So, and I'm coming to the lakes in June, as we talked about before. So I'm super excited to visit your neck of the woods. So let's get like one of the things that when you're talking about your career history that fascinates me is, it's like I guess it's very balanced in the sense of like when you look at you've got the science, but you've got the nature, and then you've got um the kind of outdoorsy pursuits, and you've got the army, and it's like you've kind of got this. It's not a contradiction, it's like a balance in terms of like the experiences that you had, but also obviously what you brought to those roles was a very balanced approach, as well as what you take away from that. So how did the army come about?
So it was my dad actually. So my dad was an army reservist his whole life, and he was always like, I want you to join the army. I want you to be a farmer and go to agricultural college. And I was like, when you're 15 or whatever, you're like, no, I don't think so. And then what's hilarious is I actually chose to do it in my 20s. I actually went and chose that path myself. So I used to be an army cadet when I was younger, and always just been involved in stuff that my dad did. And when I went to university, I needed to fund myself, I needed to find a job. Excuse me. So the first thing I thought of was like, oh, that would be so much fun. I'm going to go and do this. So I rocked up and I looked at all the different units, and I was like, which one do I want to be? A medic? Do I want to be an engineer? Oh, I'm going to go and have a look at the intelligence corps. So when I rocked up, the officer there, who was the recruiting officer, was like, oh, well, you're probably not going to get in as an officer, so you might as well go in as a soldier. And I was like, okay, well, I like this avenue. I find it really interesting. I'm going to go for it. And when I did my basic training, they took the top 5 people from the course and sent them on the officer leadership training. That was me. I was a bit like, yeah. Right. So yeah, then I obviously went to Sandhurst, commissioned, and carried on my career.
Amazing. So you've got that kind of leadership skill piece that you're bringing in as well, aren't you? As well as this more kind of spiritual, connected, what, I don't know, how do you describe that side of you?
Yeah. So I kind of see myself as like the conduit, or the balance point between the the more conventional leadership world and also the spiritual world. And actually it's a beautiful synergy when you work together with it, because when we think about conscious leadership, so in terms of having that honor and respect and love for people and for the planet, and wanting to do the best for the world, we really need to I suppose we're working from a place of we're not working from a place of ego, we're working from a place of collaboration and wanting the best for everybody. So when it comes to that kind of spiritual piece there, actually working on yourself is one of the key things. So this work all starts at home, and you kind of have to do all the work on yourself before you can then start to bring that out to everybody else. And for you to be the most authentic and conscious leader that you can be, you've got to own your stuff, you've got to own your shit, and you've then got to also go, okay, I know this is my stuff, I can now work on it. So a lot of it is very much about self-healing and understanding yourself and loving yourself. We talked about that earlier, that self-love, and knowing that when you're in that space of authenticity, and nobody's perfect, that when we're this vulnerable mess, actually we can still be a great leader, because we can be authentic, we can step into our authentic self, and we can make conscious choices about how to move forwards, knowing that we have ways to work with energy, to work with common humanity, and essentially to raise the energetic vibration of whatever we're working with.
Yes, I love that. And actually, talking about energy, today is Monday, the 8th of April, and there's some crazy stuff going on energetically, right? With the moon and the solar eclipse. Talk to us about that, because I'm fascinated by this. I'm like so curious about it. I'm not like in there with the know. Tell us about what's going on today on the day of recording.
Okay, so we've got the solar eclipse, and we've got a new moon in Aries. So at the last full moon, we also had a penumbral lunar eclipse, and that kind of opened up this eclipse season. So for the last couple of weeks, and I don't know about your listeners and you, but I have been feeling like really up and down, out of sorts. The energy has been a little bit crazy. And today, when we have this solar eclipse, this is supposed to kind of bring it all together. And new moons are always about new beginnings. So this eclipse portal has been about relationships, and that's relationships with ourselves, relationships with other people. And my friend Sarah has this great way of describing it. So she says it's a bit like at the first lunar eclipse, we got chucked in the washing machine. We've been on spin cycle for the
Oh my
last couple of
God.
weeks, spat out the other end
Okay.
today or tomorrow. So yeah, the energy shifts, but what's really important is that this solar eclipse really connects us with our soul purpose. Why am I here? What am I meant to do? What do I love to do? What brings me joy? What makes me really happy? And that helps us to really feel into, right, this is an opportunity for new beginnings. So the new moon is always an opportunity for new beginnings, and this one's in the sign of Aries, so it's a fiery sign. So it's like gives you a bit of a kick up the arse to move forwards and do the things that you've always wanted to do, never been brave enough. It's an opportunity to really go, well, to pause, because we always pause at the new moon and really feel into, what do I want to do? What changes can I make? And what one step could I take to then shift the whole of it. So the exciting thing about an eclipse is it can almost kind of spin us on a new trajectory, and set us off in a new wonderful direction. So
Amazing. I love
exciting.
that. I love that, and it's comforting because this last week or so, I don't know if you can see, yeah, I've still got a big bruise here. Oh, actually, I've got a lump in there from where I slipped for the third time in one day. I slipped over. I was like, "What is going on?" Like proper clumsy. We had Adam and I were both here, and we had two trips, electric trips. Like electric just tripped out, and we couldn't find the source of the trip. Our clock stopped working. There was some crazy stuff going on, and I was like, energetically, something is going on here. So I feel in tune in that sense. And cycles is the other thing as well, right? Because as women in particular, we have a cycle that tracks the moon far more than like our male counterparts. I guess their cycle is they rise in the morning and they go to bed at night and they rise again the next morning, a bit like the sun. So how do you work with our cycles, and like where's the wisdom to be had in that?
Sure. Okay. So let's take the cycle of the year to start off with.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about the way that our year works, we've got the spring, the summer, the autumn, the winter. The springtime, we're all vibrant. I wonder now if you're like, yes, we've got longer days, the sun's coming out. I'm excited to move forwards. Summertime is a time of growth and enjoyment, and again, quite high vibration for us. It's often a joyful time. We have lots of parties. We then get to autumn. Now, when we really connected with nature in the cycle of the season, autumn's the time where we slow down. It's where we slow down. If it was the pre-agriculture times, we'd be gathering our last harvest, when we were hunter-gatherers, and we would be settling down for the winter and making sure we had enough to eat to survive. And we would be lowering our energy because we couldn't be frenetic at that time. We would need to begin to almost to hibernate. And of course, in the winter time, we would have hibernated. We would have been as still as possible and eaten the limited reserves we would have had, and spent that time connecting with each other around the fire and dreaming and singing and, having that beautiful community that we maybe don't have anymore, until the light started to return again in the spring, and we go around the whole cycle. So the problem with our society today is that we're expected to be in that spring and summer the whole time. We're expected, and this was my experience throughout work, to be on the ball all the time, go, 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 go. And there's never a stop. There's never a pause. There's never this cyclical way of working. So what we find is that people are getting burned out, really burned out, and especially women, because we are not used to this. Our bodies are not designed to work in this way. So if we think about our own cycles, we've got and this, we have cycles whether we bleed or not. So, if we have, if we use contraception that stops us from bleeding, or even if we've had hysterectomies, we still have hormones that go throughout our bodies, depending on which bits have been moved. Anyway, but when we can really learn to work with our cycles, that's when life starts to change. So when we menstruate, when we bleed, I mean, like, I need to have some time out. I need a little bit of quiet time, and I don't plan anything big. I don't put myself under I try not to put myself under too much pressure during that time because I know naturally my energy is lower.
It's our
And then
winter, right?
it's our winter, exactly. And so then when we come into our what's the next phase? Our follicular phase, is it? Yes, it's follicular. We're coming up to ovulation. That phase is when our energy builds. And I'm like always like, oh yeah, great. And my energy for running, for example, really picks up. We've then got ovulation, which is our summer. And then we've got the luteal phase, which is our autumn. So if we can begin to honor our cycle and to plan things around our cycle, that can be really helpful. It can be really good for our well-being, because when we are on that flat line the whole time and we're expected to go go go, and if you've got period pain and you need to take you take paracetamol and you get on with it, don't you? But actually, if you were to go, oh, today I'm going to have a down day, a rest day, it's not always possible when we're working, but we can try
Yeah.
to adjust things, and certainly I did when I was working for somebody else. And then we've got the cycle of the moon. So the moon influences us more than we think. Some people are really sensitive to the moon. I don't know about you, Emma. Do you notice the moon? Do you feel the full moon?
Yeah, I definitely do.
Um,
Full moon intensities. Yeah.
yeah. There's a reason the word lunatic is lunatic, because it's the moon, which comes from the full moon. So personally, when it comes to the full moon, I can't sleep. The energy is really high. I'm like, in a good way.
Yeah.
But we're all affected in different ways. So we have got the new moon, which is today. And that's a time where the energy is generally quite low. So it's where we can't see the moon. The energy of the moon is at her lowest. And this is our time to pause, to reflect and go, how has the last lunar cycle been? How am I feeling now? And what do I want to bring into this next lunar cycle or further? So it's that's going into the void, and it's about feeling into it. It's not about doing anything. So it's about taking that pause for a little while. And then as the moon waxes and grows up to the first quarter, that's when the energy starts to build. It's a little bit like the spring. And that's when we can put our focus into doing more things. So I always, when I work with the moon, I'm a real stickler for not micromanaging. So micromanaging is not a great thing, because then we can get a little bit too absorbed in the nitty gritty and the kind of 3D world. Whereas if we can set our intentions at the new moon, so tonight I'm holding a new moon ceremony online, which is all about feeling into what it is we want to create in our lives. We put that energy out there and we work with the law of attraction. So what we give out, we get back. So as the moon waxes, we just open ourselves up to the opportunities that the universe provides, and we take them as they come. And then as we get to the full moon, that's when she's at her highest in energy. That's when we get to the peak, and it's a great time to have a party. It's brilliant. That's when you want to be planning your really full-on things, whatever it is that's high energy that you're working with. But one of the key things about the full moon is that it helps us to understand what it is we need to let go of, because we can't shine brightly all the time. And this is a key teaching of the moon. We can't be bright. The moon is only bright in the sky for 3 days. So as the moon wanes and gets smaller, we let go of the things that don't serve us anymore. So at the full moon, when I do a full moon ritual, it's very much about releasing that which no longer serves me. And then we focus on letting go as the energy of the moon dissipates, and then we come back to the new moon again and we go, oh, okay, how was that last lunar cycle, and what am I ready for now? What's shifted and changed, and what do I now want to create in my life? So it's a really beautiful way of, it's almost like it's a great way of a great method of personal development, but it's a great way of structuring your life around a cycle which serves you.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love that. And it's only really been in the last probably two-ish years. Actually, probably, yeah, because I used to have the coil. So I didn't have bleeds for 10 years, which, was quite convenient for me. But I got to the point where I was like, actually, I want to be more in tune with my body's cycles. So I had that removed, and I was quite pleasantly surprised how quickly my cycles returned. So it's only really been in the last couple of years that I've been a little bit more in tune with just my hormonal fluctuations, my symptoms around like the cycle as well, and noticing how perhaps in sync or out of sync I am with the moon itself. And I guess this might sound quite woo to some people, but it's also science, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, we know how our hormones change throughout our cycle. So we understand that. If you think about women's bodies, so men's bodies are 60%, women's bodies are 55% of made of water. And if you think about the influence that the moon has on the tides,
Mhm.
what's happening within our bodies?
Mm.
Um, and then in terms of the wheel of the year, so I follow the Celtic wheel of the year. So there are different festivals at the cross quarter. There's the quarters and the cross quarter festivals, and those are all based around the energy of the season. So when it comes to spring, the grasses, you know, all the plants are growing and getting more vibrant. And we know, for example, that the trees emit essential oils, which are called phytoncides, which boost our well-being. They improve our immunity by giving us extra natural killer cells. They increase the number of natural killer cells in our body. So we know there's so much science behind this. You know, we know that actually when we're out in the summertime and we're connecting with the soil because we're harvesting or we're gardening or what have you, we know that a connection with soil creates a chemical reaction in our body which creates serotonin, our happy hormone. So there's so much science behind this
Mm.
that it isn't woo. It is, you know, you can see it in absolutely both ways. You can see it from a spiritual point of view, but you can also back it up with the science behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. And for someone sat at her desk, 5 days a week, whether that's a home office or an office, um, thinking this is all very well, but I do actually have a 9 to 5. Like, what advice do you give those people to get these chemical effects and like to actually get their feet in the dirt as often as they can? Like, what are simple ways that they can incorporate more nature into their life?
Do you know what? There's also, excuse me, lots of scientific studies about even just having photographs of nature in your office
Mm.
increases your well-being.
Oh, wow.
Even just so I've got some plants behind me. Surround yourself with plants, you know, because they are going to make a difference. And plants like aloe vera and what other plants? If you Google the plants that create the most oxygen, you know, you can find a list of houseplants that do that.
Mm.
Excuse me. So surround yourself by plants, just have pictures of nature, anything around. If you like go outside and you collect a feather or something that just connects you with nature, that can really improve your health and well-being, especially mental health. I would recommend getting outside as much as you can, get as much natural light. So if you're under strip lighting, it's horrible, isn't it? See if you can sit next to a window, see if you can open the window. Bird song, again, has been proven to increase serotonin in our bodies, to make us feel more happy. So if you can hear birds, if you can't, put a track on YouTube. So if you go onto YouTube and put birdsong in, you can have birdsong playing for like 10 hours if you wanted to.
Is the bird I don't know if you can hear.
I can't hear it through
Oh, you
there.
can't hear it. Oh, it's really tweeting away as you were talking. I was like, there it is. But sometimes we don't even hear it, right? Because we just don't hear it. And it's like tuning into that
Yeah.
sound because it's there.
And the other thing I would say is don't forget we are part of nature. We're not separate from nature. We're mammals. So we can honor our own cycles. So just become familiar with your cycle. And if you don't bleed, then just be aware of perhaps how the moon affects you. I don't know if you're able to share links, but on my website, there's a free downloadable chart which helps you to track your cycles with the moon. So you can line up where your bleed is with the moon. And if you don't bleed, you just make a note of how you're feeling each day. So, you know, today I'm feeling really pissed off. Today I'm feeling a bit down. Oh, but today, I've got more energy. And today I'm feeling really excited. So you can just plot that. And what's really interesting is when you do it over I've done it for years. When you do it over a number of years, you get to know yourself so well. You really do. Like, I know that every 4th month, every bleed, I have a moment of turning into a fucking bitch for a day. And everybody knows about it, but that's okay because I'm like, guys, this is my whole family is like, oh well, here we go. So just beginning to know yourself better is such a gift.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I can remember when I left my office job and took some time to myself that I was naturally drawn to being outdoors more. Like I didn't have a dog yet. It was on the cards, but I was like, I'm just gonna take myself out for walks, and I would go to the park, and I would just see things and just like really be present, I guess, just really noticing things, being in all my senses. Just that was just such a new experience that I guess I hadn't necessarily gifted myself, because it's a gift, right? Just to be to kind of expand time when you're just in nature with nowhere else to be but where you are, and you just can see everything around you. And for me, the water is something that calls me. I'm a Pisces, so water sign, but I'm always more at home by the sea. Or if we're inland, like give me a body of water somewhere and I'll be very happy. What's the science behind water and the effect that it has on us?
Yeah, so water's a good one. So the blue environment is really calming. So there's something about, isn't there, walking along the beach and the waves are lapping, and it's
Mm.
very repetitive, and it just helps to soothe our nervous system. Saying that, in Cumbria and of course elsewhere, we can get some really wild days out on the coast as well. And those are exciting as well. So they're exhilarating and invigorating. And I think whenever you go, and we've got obviously like a stone's throw away from Derwentwater here, but wherever you go where there's a body of water, there's a benefit for you. So there's either this beautiful mirrored lake where you've got the reflections of the sky or the clouds and there's peace, or you've got the crashing of waves, or the, I don't know, a crashing of a waterfall. And it's interesting how both of those different energies of the water can be so good for our well-being, to either invigorate or either to calm. But what they both do is they calm our nervous system, which is one of the key things. And what's interesting is that when there are water droplets in the air, these also connect with our, as we breathe them in, these connect with, have a chemical reaction again, which produces serotonin in the body. So it makes us happy. It's a little bit like earthing. It's the same principle as earthing. So
Mm.
if you get your feet on the ground, bare feet on the ground, oh, it's the best thing to do.
Yeah, I guess it's the same as just like being, just seeing a bit of rain and just allowing yourself to stand in the rain and not worry about getting wet, right?
Next time in your rain, you're standing in the rain, put your palms of your hands out and close your eyes and just
Yeah.
feel the pattern of the raindrops on your skin. And it is beautiful, and it completely reframes your relationship with rain.
Love that. I once I often do these little selfie shoots. So I just get the tripod out, and the best times I've found that I've like really got into it is one when the snow came and I looked out on my decking and it was just like 3 or 4 inches of snow, and I was like, I've got to be in the snow, and I was literally laying in the snow taking photos of myself like a child. I loved it. And the other one was it was a really beautiful sunny day actually, and I had a dress on, and then there's just this downpour, and I was like, this is the time. And it was just so, I don't know, just so liberating to be like without a care in the world. Yeah, get wet. Like, because we're so uptight about that sort of thing, aren't we? It's like, oh no, got to put a waterproof jacket on, or got to get the brolly out. But I know for me, the when you were talking about the wild waves of the West, I know for me, I did a daily sea swim in October last year, and I called it my rewilding, because it really was. It's like going through that whole, oh, I've got to do it again today. But actually, by the time, like, when you got over the hurdle of actually getting to the beach, getting in was easy because I was by the water. I just needed to get in it. Yeah, it was cold, but it was invigorating and refreshing. And I just felt so alive. And I think it was this one particular really wavy day. I've talked about it on the podcast before, where like people were saying to me, "Are you going in?" And I was like, "Yeah, I am." And it was just like power meets power with these waves that were crashing down, and I was walking into it, and you might have thought it was kind of foolish, but actually I just felt like I was meant to be there, and it was just like I was learning something about myself. And yes, it took courage to be there, but I was just I had just had so much respect for the sea, and just for like, yeah, it was a crazy rewilding, that's what I call it. And you really work with, I guess, this idea of the wild woman, don't you, on your retreats and your work that you do. So talk to us about, what does that process look like? Where does someone come to you, and how do they feel? And how do they feel once they've tapped into their wild woman?
Hmm. So yeah, so I run weekend retreats in Keswick, well, not in Keswick, just around Keswick. And yeah, the Wild Woman retreat is very much about stripping back, like almost unzipping those layers and layers that society and patriarchy and our families put upon us, to go, who is this woman inside and what does she want to do? Not what everybody else wants to do, not what she's expected to do. What does she want to do? So it's really a stripping back, a cleansing almost. Not quite sure cleansing is the right word, but you know, we do cord releasing, we do letting go of all the things that are holding us back in life. We spend a lot of time in nature. We spend a lot of time connected with nature, using nature as a metaphors. We do, my retreat is down Borrowdale. It's the wildest place you can probably get to in the lakes, and it's quite primeval. You know, it's stripping us right back to ourselves. And then we go, okay, so she's here now. What does she want to do? How can we begin to create that? So I'm a shamanic practitioner. So we do some shamanic journeying and drumming. We do cacao ceremonies. We do some embodied movement. And I have a wonderful girl called Nat who comes and helps me, who does some Yoni Shakti dance. So we're really feeling into like our own energy. And then we come out of the other side on the Sunday going, oh, wow. So this last one, we also included an arrow break and a glass walk. And the women from the beginning to the end were just in a completely different place, like a very, very different place of empowerment, of actually, oh, I think I know what I want to do now. Why have I been letting all this stuff in my life hold me back when actually look at my amazing potential? And so I've seen people go on to change careers, to end relationships, begin new relationships, and yeah, to just do what they want to do with joy and with excitement, rather than there's a lot of shame that hangs about, a lot of shame and guilt that hangs around, especially women my age, around, you know, it's not okay for me to nourish myself. It's not okay because I should be doing stuff for somebody else. But this is one of the retreats that helps you to kind of dispel that myth and to really step forwards into what you want to do.
I love that.
And then the Warrior Woman retreat. So I've got a Warrior Woman retreat coming up in June.
Cool.
And that is all about, you know, when you're fiercely passionate about something. So some people are fiercely and passionate about the environment. Some people are really passionate about helping other people. Some people are passionate about human rights. You know, whatever you're really passionate about, how can you then work with that to, or how can you shift your energy to make yourself the most effective and positive conduit for change? So the Warrior Woman is about really letting go of all the stuff that's holding you back. So we use axe throwing. So I'm also an axe throwing instructor. So
is there anything you don't do?
we use axes to sever the cords that bind us. So it's quite a somatic process of doing that. And then we use firewalking as the transformation, as the transformative method to really shift from one state to another. Because if you can walk across 600-degree coals and not burn your feet, what else can you do? If that's a limiting belief that you've always had, I can't walk across fire, it's too hot. Well, actually, what if you can? And then you do, and you're like, wow, if I can do that, what else can I do? Firewalking just massively transformed my life. I love it. I love to do it.
Oh my goodness, I want to do it. Oh, I think I want to do it. That's so good. And it sounds like, I'm so pleased you're doing this, because in a sense, this is what we were talking about just before we hit record. It's like a lot of times when we're in a situation in life where we take a pause, it's like, oh, something's not right and I think I'm unhappy, and therefore I need to change my circumstances. So I need to go and get a new job, or I need to end this relationship, or I need to have kids or something. Like you kind of look at your situation and think that's the thing that's got to change. But actually, if we could just take a pause, take some time out to really connect to what it is that we want from life, which is what you do on these weekends. It's what I do in my game plan sessions, right? It's actually tapping right back into those core desires that we have that have been there all along and probably grown and evolved through our life, but actually we're just disconnected to them maybe through the run of life. If we did that before we make any drastic change, that change could be really intentional and could actually be for the better, rather than perhaps just taking the same dissatisfaction with you to a new scenario or situation.
Yeah. So I knew about 10 years ago that I wasn't in alignment with what I wanted to do. So I had a great job. You know, my job did it had a purpose. I was able to support people, I was able to support the environment, but I just felt that something was out of alignment. And that's when I did a lot of soul searching, a lot of like, what is my soul purpose and what do I want to do? And I didn't know what it looked like. I had no idea I would have a wellbeing center, that I'd have a business, which I'm just turning into a community interest company. So it's a social enterprise. I give back to the world. You know, I didn't have any idea that this was going to happen. But what I did know is four core things. I knew that I wanted to help to heal people. I wanted to help to heal the environment. I wanted to connect people with nature, and I wanted to spread love and kindness around the world. And so what I did was I had this mantra that I would look at, I would had it written on my wall. I would see it every day. And there's an energy technique that I use where you give it a color and you embody all those emotions you're going to feel when you have that. You beam it out. It's like you're beaming out a big sunshine from your body. And then, you know, what we give out, we get back. So if I'm giving out love and joy and positivity, that's what I'm going to get back. If we're living in a place of, oh, life's really shit and nothing's ever going to go right and all of that, that's all we're attracting. So for us, we really need to change how we're feeling in our bodies. And the great thing about this is our brain doesn't know what's real and what's imagined. So if you can imagine a future with you in it, of you being so happy and so excited and so grateful for the opportunities, and that's what you're giving out, that's what you're going to get back. So I just started to work with that. And you know what? I didn't have a fixed plan, and things just began to change and evolve. So a little bit like I described at the working with the moon cycle, I just opened myself up to the possibilities that the universe could bring to me, giving out that energy. And then various things came back at different times. And you know, this is what I've managed to create.
I love what you've created. I really do. And I love talking to you. You've got such a beautiful vibe and energy about you. And I could continue forever, but I just looked at the time and I said, yeah, we'll go for 30, 40 minutes. So let's wrap this up. Where can people find you? I will make sure there's a link in the show notes to the cycle and moon tracker that you said, but where can people find you on social media, website, everything?
Yeah, so I'm on Facebook and Instagram, Lakeland Wellbeing. I have a website, lakelandwellbeing.co.uk. If you want to look at the more kind of corporate work that I do and the empowerment work, the glass walking, the fire walking, I've also got a jengrange.com website. You find me on LinkedIn under Jen Grange. Oh, I tell you what I haven't told you about actually. So we have an amazing Facebook group called Moon Sisters, which is a community for women who love to work with the cycles of the moon. So we've got nearly 900 members, I think, doing quite well. So if you want to join that, every new moon and full moon, I do a little video about working with the energy of the moon and how you can bring a little ritual into your life. And it's a lovely community of women who always post cool stuff on there and have a little bit of a chit chat. Oh, I have a YouTube channel as well. I'll give you the link to the YouTube channel.
Brilliant. I will make sure the links to all of those are in the show notes, and I am coming over to the Moon Sisters Facebook group myself, so I shall see you in there. But thank you so much for your time and for sharing your wisdom and your energy with us and all your advice. And yeah, I'm glad to be connected. And yeah, thanks for being here.
It's been such a pleasure. Thank you.
That's Buddy, who's now also telling me what time it is, because it's 10 minutes before his dinner, isn't it? Come on in. You're going to say goodbye? There we go. So until next time, guys, take care and see you then.